Hello, and thanks for watching. This is my second video discussing an LSAT game. Like the first video, this LSAT game is from the 2007 June LSAT, and again, this can be downloaded from the LSAC website, and of course, the link is provided on my website for your perusal. If you'd like, you can print it out. But notice here, I have the game, in its entirety, and I am asserting fair use. By the way, if you're wondering about copyright issues, this is a good example of fair use in copyright. In any case, I'm also aware that the very bottom right left-hand part of the page, it is a little bit cut off. That's not going to be a big deal. This is just the best way for me to fit in this game in this particular video. So the difference between the second video and the first video is twofold. So first of all, in this video, number one, I'm going to actually answer the questions. Okay, and what you're going to see is that there are no real deductions based on the rules. So in the first game, we had all these types of cool deductions that we could make, and that's why I didn't answer the questions. But here we have no really great fancy deductions, okay? And that's going to be the main thing with this game, so it's going to take a while, okay? In addition, it might be a little bit messy, simply because I don't have a lot of room here, but I did decide to kind of generate it like this in this form. So, how do we attack this game? All right, well, so step one in all of our games is to just write down the entities first. So if we read over kind of this opening part here, it says there are exactly 3 recycling centers in Riverton, Center 1, 2, and 3. So it's actually really a good idea, and again, you're going to forgive me, it's a little bit messy here. On the day of the test, you'll have a little bit more room. But I'm going to take down here in the kind of the middle 3 centers. 1, 2, and 3. Notice I wrote down the number 3, the type of characters, centers, and then the actual characters themselves, 1, 2, and 3. In addition, though, if we keep reading in the the first paragraph, it says exactly 5 kinds of material are recycled at these recycling centers: glass, newsprint, plastic, tin, and wood. So I'm going to take that down, 5 MAT for materials, and I'm going to write down the characters for each, G, N, P, T, and W. So you always want to write down the entities in terms of the number, again, like 5, and the type, as in materials, and then the letter for each. Let's keep reading. Notice it says from here up at the top paragraph, each recycling center recycles at least 2, but no more than 3 of these kinds of materials. We will come back to that. This part here, this up here, that's actually a rule that is hidden in the opening part, okay? So we'll come back to that. So we've done our step 1, which is just taking down the entities. Step 2 is to create a sketch based on the type of game. And I'm going to create the sketch here over on number 20, again, just because I don't have a lot of good room. And the sketch is going to be pretty basic. I'm just going to write down 1, 2, and 3, and I'm going to create a chart like that. So on the day of the test, this chart up here, you can actually use for all of the questions. I'll be recreating the chart for a lot of the questions, though, in terms of just so I can make sure I have enough room to work. All right, so again, step 1, I took down the entities. Step 2, I created a sketch based on the type of game. And by the way, this type of game, for lack of a better word, it's not really a big idea, and I think I'll put it here, is a distribution game, where I am distributing a larger set of entities like materials among a smaller set like centers. So notice, again, putting up here, I put the centers on top, and that's generally what you want to do. You want to put the lower numbered entity on top of the chart. Oakley dokley, so we've done step 2. Now step 3, we need to do the rules, and I'm actually going to do the rules down here where I'm kind of marking up here, around here. And again, I know this is not a whole lot of room here, but it's just good so you guys can see the entire game. All right, so the first rule, as I implied, as I intimated up here, is actually up in the opening paragraph. So what I'm just going to write is 2 or 3 each. And that's going to remind me, and again, sorry, down under number 18, I just wrote 2 or 3 each. And I just need to recall that means 2 or 3 materials in each center. Okay, I can't be writing out every single little rule. I have to write it down in a shorthand that means something to me. So that's actually our first rule. So now we can go down to these other rules here. Okay, so our second rule, although the first indented rule, but really our second rule, is starts with any recycling center that recycles wood also recycles newsprint. So for those of you familiar somewhat with the LSAT, you'll know the way we can take this down is in if-then form. So I'm going to write it like this down below number 18. If, excuse me, what does it say? If W, then N. Now, by the way, I should always recall the contrapositive when I'm given an if-then rule. So for those of you not familiar with the contrapositive, that involves formal logic. That is outside the scope of this particular lesson here, and that's something you definitely need to learn for purposes of the LSAT. But what this rule here means, if W then N, that means the contrapositive is if not N, then not W. And that is a deduction you can make. I actually don't have my students write that down. I have them see it. Okay, I think it actually takes up too much room to write it down. I think it's inefficient. But for purposes of this video, I'm writing down the contrapositive. Personally, I force my students to see the contrapositive, but that's kind of part of the tutoring. All right, so I've done that second rule, or the first indented rule. Now let's do this rule here. Every kind of material that center 2 recycles is also recycled at center 1. So the way I'm actually going to do that, I'm going to write if in 2 for recycled in center 2, then for an arrow, then in 1. The contrapositive is if, there I'm going to write not in 1, then not in 2. That's the contrapositive. So pretty much this rule up here is kind of saying the same thing with the contrapositive and this rule here. Okay, they're linked directly together. Again, the contrapositive, that involves formal logic outside of the scope of this particular lesson. Okay, our final rule up in this opening paragraph, again, the final rule. Only one of the recycling centers recycles plastic, and that recycling centers does not recycle glass. That's actually 2 rules in 1. So going back down again under 19, I know I'm, again, forgive me for the use of this room, but we can take that down as follows. P equals only 1. Notice I translated the word exactly into only. P equals only 1. And also I'm going to write differently, no GP, and I'm going to circle that. I'm not going to put a slash through it. I like writing the word no. I call that a split group. I know G and P can never go together. Okay, so in this particular situation, we don't have a lot of good deductions. There is a minor deduction to be made. I think it's really not that big of a deal, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. What we can do is deduce that from, and if you look under 19 here, from this rule here, if 2 then in 1, well, that means that there's no way that P can go in 2. Going back up to number 20. Sorry, I should have indicated that. But P cannot go in number 2. Why? Because if something goes in number 2, then it needs to go in number 1, and P is only 1. Don't worry about that, though. That's really not that big of a deal. We really don't have any great deductions for this game. All right, so now let's answer the questions, and we do actually want to answer the questions in a certain order, and actually what we're going to do is we're going to start with number 18 here, okay? Notice what number 18 says. It says, which of the following could be an accurate account of all the kinds of material recycled at each recycling center in Riverton? All right, so for those of you familiar with the LSAT, number 18 is a very standard question. I call it a lineup question. Some people call it acceptability. Some people call it a rule picker. It doesn't really matter. The approach is all the same. Everybody does the approach the same. And this is in my training manual, of course. That's going to be in my third video. Okay, I'll talk about my training manual. I'll talk about what I did. But in attacking number 18, what we're actually going to do is we're going to pick a single rule, just one rule, and we're going to go to the answer choices and eliminate any choices that violate that rule. So in other words, if I start with this first rule here, see the star where I'm making there, 2 or 3 each. If I go through each of the answer choices, you'll see each of the centers have 2 or 3 each. So I can't eliminate any answers based on that first rule. This second rule over here, right? If W then N. Well, if I go through the answer choices, notice, for example, in A, I have W here and then N here, so that's okay. I have W here and N here, that's okay. However, in center 3, I have W, but I don't have N. And I know if I have W here in center 3, I have to have N, so answer choice A is a wrong answer. If you were to check, you should check all the other answers. If you check all the other answers, all of the other answers are just fine. They all work, okay, for that particular rule. I'm just kind of telling you that. All right, so let's go to our next rule, starring this over here. Hopefully you can see where I'm referring to, right? If it's in center 2, then it's also in center 1. I don't have to read A anymore, right? A, we are done. So let's take a look at B. So notice in B in center 2, we have glass, we have newsprint, and we have tin, meaning we have to have the same thing in center 1, and we also have glass, newsprint, and tin, so that's okay. On the other hand, in center 2, notice we have glass, newsprint, and tin, but in center 1, we only have glass, newsprint, and wood. We need tin there, so answer choice C is incorrect. By the way, let's actually take a look at answer choice D. I need to show you something. Answer choice D has glass and tin in center 2, and then in center 1, we also have glass and tin. Notice in D, but we have plastic in center 1, but that's okay. Because the rule is not saying if it's in center 1, then it needs to be in center 2. The rule is saying if it's in center 2, then it's center 1. That goes to formal logic, and again, that's a separate discussion from this particular video. Answer choice E, notice that should be okay. That is actually okay according to that rule. All right, so we've eliminated answer choice A and answer choice C. Now let's go to this next rule down here, right, where we have P is only in 1. We only have to look at answer choice B, D, and E. So in answer choice B, we only have plastic in center 3. In answer choice D, we only have plastic in center 1. And then in answer choice E, we have plastic, notice, in center 1 here, but we also have it in center 2, but we know we need to have only 1, so answer choice E is out. And then finally, we have the last part of that last rule down here, no GP. G and P can never go together, so we can eliminate any answers where G and P go together. That doesn't happen in answer choice B, but if you take a look at it, answer choice D, we have G in center 1 and plastic in center 2, right? Can't go together. Answer choice D is incorrect, so we must have answer choice B as our correct answer. Oakley dokley. So, gee, wasn't that a lot of fun? So you want to do these lineup questions first. Really important because you can get them right, but also because it gets you warmed up to the rules so you can understand how the rules really work. Now, we're going to skip number 19 because notice number 19 does not start with an if, as opposed to every other question, although you can't really see it in 21. In number 20, we have an if. Number 21, we have an if. Number 22, we have an if. And number 23, we have an if. You want to answer these if questions first. Why? Well, the best explanation for that is to actually show you. And then you'll see why. So let's take a look at number 20. And when you have an if question, according to my manual, there's a 3-step method. Step 1 is just to build the if into the question. Step 2 is to use the rules to see what deductions you can make. Then step 3 is to evaluate the answers appropriately. So if we take a look up at number 20, it says if center 2 recycles 3 types of materials. Well, for now, I can just build in a number. Let's just see what happens. notice I didn't even read the rest of the question. I'm just going to build in this if in number 20, and I'm literally just going to create 3 slots. Well, what do I know from my rules? So step 2 is now to use the rules. Don't just read the question. Once you've built in the if, like I have done, use the rules. And I know that one of my rules says if it's going to be in center 2, then it must be in center 1. So I know I have to have the same 3 here. So in fact, what I'm going to do is put a little equal sign, just like that, to know these are going to be the same. Well, what else can I figure out? If I'm going to have the same 3 in center 1 and in center 2, what that means is P has to go in center 3. Right? Because P is going to go only in 1, and we know we have the exact same 3 in this scenario in center 1 and in center 2, right? This center 1 has to have the same 3 as we have in center 2, so P has to go third. And if we notice what the question is asking, which of the following kinds of material must center 3 recycle? Answer choice C, plastic, is our correct answer. So build in the if any way you can, use the rules to make any additional deductions, and then go to your answer choices. Now, number 21 is actually similar, but it's actually a little bit trickier, and I need to make sure I don't run out of room here. So this is a little bit of painful. 1, 2, 3, like that, like that, like this. Okay. So here, by the way, you can't just use the numbers that we did before. I don't think I'm going to take the time to go into why. So sometimes what you need to do, if you look at this question, if each recycling center in Riverton recycles exactly 3 types of material, well, in this scenario, actually what we're going to do is we're just going to build in just one example of the if, okay? I call this an ambiguous if. It's not saying which 3 types of material, right, go in, but I know that each one of them has to have 3 of them. So what I'm just going to do is just build in some examples and just see what happens. Okay, this is totally acceptable. So for example, I think because I have these, I'm going to invoke the rules. So like for example, if I'm going to start with number 2, because I know what goes in number 2 also has to go in number 1. So let's go in number 2. Let's do W. I really like the W. You know why? Because that invokes the rule of N. Okay. What else is in some rules? Why don't we just do G? Why am I doing this? Because I can, and because it invokes some rules, because now I know in 1 I also have W, N, and G. Well, now what do I have left over? I have P left over, and I also have T left over. And then I have to put something else in 3. I have to put a third one in 3, and that can be anything but N. So what I'm going to do is, anything but W, because if I had W there, then I'd have to have N, meaning I can't have G, so this has to be N, because I can't have G, because I know, I'll put that in no G, because G and P cannot go together. So for now, what I've just created is just one example. Okay, there could be other examples, but there's a chance I might be able to get to an answer. Who knows? Let's check. So reading the question, it says, then which of the following could be true? Could be true. So if I take a look at A, only center 2 recycles glass. Well, notice I have glass in both 1 and 2, so I'll leave A for now. I don't know whether A could be true. Answer choice B, only center 3 recycles newspaper. Well, again, I have newspaper in all 3, so I don't know whether B could be true. I don't know, because I've only created just this one scenario, right? I don't know about the other scenarios. Let's take a look at answer choice C, only center 1 recycles plastic. Oh, notice I have that. I don't have that. Only center 1 recycles plastic. I don't even have that, so I can't eliminate that as well. I don't know whether that could be true. But answer choice D, only center 3 recycles tin. Notice in my particular setup, only center 3 recycles tin. And then if I take a look at E, only center 1 recycles wood. Well, I don't have that. I have wood in both center 1 and center 2. So notice here I can't eliminate A, B, C, or E. Because I don't know whether they could or could not be true. In my particular setup that I created, right, it was not true, but I don't know whether it could never be true. But notice answer choice D, clearly that could be true. And you might be wondering, well, didn't you get lucky here? Maybe, maybe not. But generally, when you're going to just build in random entities, kind of like we did, you want to purposely try to invoke the rules. And that's why I put in this 2 here, right? I put the WN here. I also put the G because those are all involved in rules. All right. That's thrilling. Let's actually move right along. Number 22. So now I have a little bit more room within which to work. And again, you don't have to recreate this chart every time. On the day of the test, you'll have more room, and you can just use the chart kind of all in one chart. All right. So number 22, if center 3 recycles glass. Okay, so let's see. Let's put that in. I know the center 3 recycles glass. All right, right off the bat, I know no P. I also had my deduction no P here. Oh, therefore, I have to have P there. Um, but that's not a lot of stuff. Okay, I need to see maybe there's some other stuff I can build in. So why don't we try to build some other stuff in? So once again, I'm going to invoke a rule, and I'm going to do that by starting with center 2, and I'm going to do the WN, just invoking the rule, because I know if W then N, I also know if 2 then 1, so I can put the WN here. All right, what am I missing? Okay, I can put T there. So I've created again one lineup. So maybe I can eliminate some answers. So let's take a look. It says, which of the following kinds of material must center 2 recycle? Well, at this point in center 2, I have W and N. I don't have anything else. So notice what that means. I can just sit there and I can eliminate some answer choices. In other words, I know it doesn't have to be A, I know it doesn't have to be C, and I know it doesn't have to be, D. Okay, it doesn't have to be. So now you're wondering, well, now what do I do? Well, what I can now try to do is create another setup, and I can just plug in an answer. I can try an answer. I mean, look, I only have answer choice B, and I only have answer choice E to deal with. So let's see. I'm thinking, let's see if we can get rid, let's invoke the rule again. So what do we know? We know G is here, we know P is here. I think this time, what happens if I put, G, I don't know. What should we do? Let's put WN over in 3, shall we, and just see what happens. Okay, so I have WN there, and then I can put, let's see, I can put a T in 2, and that means a T in 1. And then I need to put something else in number 2. Okay. Well, let's see. I could put, let's see. I can't put a G in number 2 because if I put a G in number 2, then I'd have to have it in number 1, but I know I have P in number 1. So by the way, I know no G here. Okay, no G here. So what's left over? It has to be N, meaning N goes here. Oh, that works. And notice I have N going in number 2. I don't have W, so I don't have W, so I can eliminate E. So answer choice B must be my correct answer. So a lot of the times what you can just do is build in an if, create a sketch, see if you can eliminate some answers, and then once you have 2 answers remaining, you just have to test one, see if it works. So what I tried to do is see, could I eliminate W from number 2, and I could in fact eliminate W from number 2. Okay, so now let's talk about number 23. Let's recreate the sketch. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So if center 1 is the only recycling center that recycles wood. All right. So is the only recycling center that recycles wood. So that means I have a W here, and that also means no W and no W. Okay. Well, what do I know if I have W? Well, I know if I have W, then I have N. Okay. Notice in 2 and 3, in 2 and in 3, I could still have N. The rule is not if no W, then no N. It's just if no N, then no W. Again, that's formal logic. That's the contrapositive, and that can be quite difficult. So now why don't we just see what else we can put in? I know, let's see. I mean, again, let's just see if we can kind of complete this sketch here, just create a setup. So why don't we put P in 3, meaning why don't we put G in 1, and then we have to put a couple in 2, and let's put NG because I know if 2 then 1, and then I guess I'll put a T in 3. Now I realize I did that a little bit quickly, but the idea is once you start working through these games, you'll start remembering how these rules work. And notice that the sketch that I just created, all of the this obeys all of our rules. But what I really want to focus on in number 23 is this funky question, okay? Because it's more difficult than it looks. So this question starting with then, which of the following could be a complete and accurate list? You know, that word could is more of a big deal than you think. When they ask for could be a complete and accurate list of the kinds of material that one of the recycling centers recycles, what they're asking for is one specific example of a complete and accurate list of what could be recycled. So, for example, if we take a look at A, plastic and tin, notice I have plastic and tin in number 3, and that is a complete and accurate list. So when they ask for what could be, they're asking for one specific example, but they're also asking for a complete and accurate list. Answer choice A is our correct answer. Let me show you why this is a little bit difficult. If you take a look at answer choice B, we have newsprint and wood. So you might be wondering, well, why that does not work here. We have wood here in center 1. We have wood here and newsprint here. But here's the thing. We also have G here. Okay, we have glass in center 1. So in fact, answer choice B is not complete. It does not include this G here. So answer choice B is incorrect. Answer choice C, newsprint and tin. Well, I don't have that as an example, so let's leave that for now. Well, I guess I can eliminate that because I know A is correct. Let me see if I have another example. Oh, yeah, D, G, and W. Well, notice I have G and W here again in number 1, right? But answer choice D is incomplete because I also have N, right? I have this N here. So answer choice D is incomplete. And then we don't have an example of answer choice E. You don't have to eliminate these other answers because I know answer choice A is my correct answer. Now, once again, you might be wondering, well, didn't you get lucky just with this particular setup? And again, sometimes you have to try just maybe 1 or 2 setups. You usually won't have to try that many different setups as long as you're working, okay? Now, we skipped over number 19. Well, let's go back to number 19. You always want to do these non-if questions. What do I mean by non-if? Notice number 19 here doesn't start with an if. Now, why did we save that? Because notice all these good setups we have in number 20, 21, 22, and 23. In fact, I have multiple setups. I have a bunch of different setups that I can now use to help me answer number 19. So this is always why you want to do all of the if questions first to get some good setups going. Then you can use those setups to help answer the non-if question. Well, let's take a look at number 19. It says, which of the following that's a big deal, a complete and accurate list of the recycling centers in Riverton, any one of which could recycle plastic. So notice the difference between number 19. Number 19 had this word is. Back to number 20 had this word could, and there's a difference. I will show you this in the manual in my third video. But when they ask for is, they're asking for all particular situations, all possibilities. So, which could recycle plastic. All of the possibilities that could recycle plastic. Well, I know that plastic can't go in center 2, so I can eliminate E and C. I can't tell if E is cut off, but answer choice E I think is cut off. It says center 1, 2, and 3. We can't have center 2. Well, now let's go to our prior setups. So if we go back up to number 20, this setup for number 20, look, I have P in center 3. So I know P could go in center 3. And then if we look to number 22, this setup here, notice I have P in center 1, right? So I know P can go in both center 1 and center 3, so it has to be answer choice D. Those are all of the possibilities where P can possibly go. All right, so that's how you approach a very difficult game. I did do it a little bit quickly because I know this can be very boring, and you'll forgive me for the mess. But if you really learn my four-step method, step one, step two, step three, step four, and the sub-steps within each step, you could really master these games, okay, quite well. They are very doable as long as you kind of force yourself to do as many as possible and try to really learn the correct methodology. Thanks very much for watching. And my next video, I will show you my training manual and the four-step method for games, and I can show you what we applied. Thanks for watching, and I hope this was a help, and good luck on the LSAT.